This is Melanie Rudd, the founder of She Overcomes. She Overcomes educates and equips women to overcome the imposter syndrome while biohacking the cyclical planning, goal syncing, and lived experiences of the rhythms of our lives through our Becoming Bold Leaders 8-week training, as well as our goal syncing 4-week program. We help women optimize time, energy, creativity, and focus in business and in life. This is a recording from Metamorphosis, the She Overcomes Women's Conference. I hope you enjoy this podcast.
As Melanie said, I'm joined with some incredible women here on stage, and I have not had the opportunity to meet any of them before this session. And so it was such a delight to be able to be introduced to what I would consider new best friends and to be able to share some of the conversations that I had with each of them. And I have some notes here to keep them honest in the things that they shared in the form that Melanie so kindly sent out to them. I'm gonna just do a brief introduction for myself and then ask each of them to do the same. So as Melanie noted, my name is Angela Mathers. I am a mover, a shaker, a community organizer, and I currently work at Microsoft. I would consider myself to be in the stage of rest and planting. And I'll say that because my family and I took an incredible life journey and lived in Europe for 3 years. And so we did incredible things. And I also attained my doctorate when we were there. And so I had this incredible season of harvest. And after that, moving back to Fargo and settling back into our roots here has been absolutely a space of hibernation, to be honest with you. And so there's familiar faces in here that I haven't even seen since we've been back. And so it's a lovely reintroduction, honestly, into the community. And I'm gonna ask each of our panelists to just briefly share, who are you? Give us a context to be able to understand the responses that you're gonna share as we move into learning more about your season. And we'll start with Calli.
Hello, I am Calli Bakken. I am in a season of planting as well. So about 2.5 years ago, I disrupted myself out of a job when I put on an event called Disrupt. And I am now new in my entrepreneurial journey. And so there's been a lot of amazing things happening. I also have an interim executive director role that allowed me to be able to make that transition. And so I'm simultaneously building my own thing while also building a nonprofit as its first employee. And so it's really exciting to be here and connect with all of you.
Hi, I'm Ashley Ritteman. I identify as a season of growth, and that's very much true. I'm an entrepreneur and founded a company in 2016 in the transportation and freight industry, and it has been just a journey of struggling through the planting phase and the grit it takes to make it through startup and into a maturing company. And so I'm here to talk about that transition from planting to growing and now what the growth phase looks like. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Cyndy Skorick, and it's so nice to be here today. And I retired 2 years ago from a career at Sanford. And I have to say, it is so fun to see some of the beautiful women that I worked with at Sanford. That was really the joy of my career, to work in with women and also with some of the talented clinicians there. So that's a real highlight for me. And I can never just be in one season, so I'm in harvest and rest. And what's interesting about that, I kind of laugh about the rest because I have so many people asking me, well, what are you doing with yourself? Or, you know, what's going on? And I am in constant motion, it feels like. And yet when I'm in a place of rest, it's really a beautiful, peaceful time for me as well.
Thank you all. Can you tell us an example of a time where you knew you're like in it? You're like, this is how I know this is the season I'm in. Whether that was something that was joyous or something that was hard and you sort of had to just take a moment and acknowledge, like, this is where I'm at.
These hard questions is kind of like a pop quiz up here. So what I recognize, and I'm going to talk about more recently, in the season in my life, the reason why I was knew I was in a rest harvest time is my husband of 46 years passed away last August. And I had to take on a lot in terms of a farm. And so harvest is a bit funny to me too, because I had a general idea where the land was, right? You know, I was the original Green Acres wife who would come home in high heels and just did not do farming very well. And so for me, I knew that I was in that season because even in trying to rest and be in that place of loss and change and losing your life partner, I still had to do things that meant fulfillment. Fulfillment in terms of what he had built, what we had built together, our children. I had moved into a new home and being able to do that. And even more recently, I went to a place where we spent a happy place before he got sick, and that was a period of rest and fulfillment for me. So it is really staying connected to what I am experiencing in that season, being transparent and honest, and just taking a moment to realize what season I'm in.
Thank you for being brave and going first. Okay, I've thought of one. Our company grew very quickly because the supply chain crisis that happened around COVID. It was very difficult for freight to move into the country, and the incumbents of the supply chain are very large, multi-billion-dollar companies. So having the opportunity as an emerging company to break into that space really actually took a disruption like COVID for us to have an opportunity. And so while that was happening, I was pregnant with my second child, and our company was just booming. We were having opportunity to sit at the table with large companies that I've been told so many times we punch above our weight class because we get to be in front of some of the biggest brands that we all shop and help them solve how to make their freight show up on store shelves in time for peak seasons like Christmas. And when it came time that my daughter was born, I got to take about a 3 to 4 week maternity leave. And from the time I exited from maternity leave to the time I came back, we went from a team of 2 to 40. And my first, and today we're exclusively remote as a company. We have people all over really the world who work for Valor Victoria. And so we go to a convention in Long Beach every year. And because we're remote and we don't get to interact with our team members, we choose to stay in Airbnbs where everybody has their own space. But it gives us an opportunity to make meals together and to collaborate and get to know really who your coworkers are. And I walked into this house full of people I'd never met. And they all knew me, and I didn't know them. And so I had the opportunity to realize that people came alongside of this effort. And instantly, even though we didn't always know what we were doing, we were leading 40-some people now into the same direction we were going in. And it was very humbling and exciting. And turns out that when I wanted to start a company, I thought about the freight and the operations. I'm very much an operationally minded person. I didn't think about the wonderful people that would be there. And when we actually got to a point of needing to grow, that you would have this great group that came alongside of you. And so growth is painful, and that season was painful in many ways, but it also had a lot of joy to it. And so that would be my moment.
Thanks, Ashley. Calli?
Oh, mine is like a 2-year progression, as I maybe alluded to. But I moved from the nonprofit space to the startup space and really got to do a lot of things and get really messy and learn a lot of skills and move fast and furiously and figure out how to clean it up later, which left me in a spot where I had no idea what I should do next, but I knew I needed to move on. And I had lots of false starts. I had 5 interviews for a 6-figure job that then ghosted me. At one point, I had a 45-minute rejection call where they said they tried to create a position to hire me. Before that, I had accepted a role verbally and then unaccepted it. because I knew that I wasn't walking into something that was going to set me up for success, which was really hard because I just wanted out and I just wanted to be able to grow and develop and do something. And throughout all of this process, I was still trying to move forward where I was and create good things, which meant that I was sort of going forward and back and forward and back with, okay, now I can pursue looking for another job. Okay, now I can't because I've got this thing that I'm doing that I'm committed to and I want to be successful. And that was really, really hard. And in the midst of that, I met the most incredible entrepreneur who said, "What the fuck are you doing?" And I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And she and I got closer and closer. And she was like, you are so much better than this, and kept sending things my way and saying, "You should apply for this, but you should be doing your own thing. And you should apply for this, but really you should be doing your own thing." And so it finally came to a head where she said, "All right, I've got an offer you can't refuse. This is what I would like to propose, and I want you to say that you're okay with me doing that." And that started the conversation, as I'd also sort of been building. Less than a year before I filed my LLC, I was still telling people I would never, ever do my own thing because I wanted nothing to do with entrepreneurial life. I saw it growing up. And I really just wanted stability, and I wanted to stop causing so much chaos for my family. And then all of a sudden I was calling people saying, "All right, I have this thing that's happening and I think it's going to start in like 2 weeks. So what do I need to do in addition to filing an LLC?" And so it's been sort of this really, really long, painful point to get to the point of saying, you can't force things. All of these opportunities that I thought were going to be the thing that saved me weren't going to do that. And I finally got to the point where I said, no one's going to create magic for you. You have to do it yourself. And that gave me kind of the edge that I needed to be able to say, all right, I guess I'm going to bet on myself.
Thank you, ladies. What an incredible peek into each of your worlds. I'm really appreciative of that. I think what's clear, too, is that you're not necessarily just in one season at any given time, right? I think we're sort of moving around depending on if it's in our personal lives, in our public lives, and what that looks like. Can you share, this is for any of you, not all of you have to answer it, but can you share with us whether you feel like your public version of yourself always matched your inner perspective or your inner dialogue, and maybe what was the difference, if there was one?
Okay. I think for me, it was just, it followed a process of maturing as an individual, because when you are, well, for me, I grew up maybe very insecure. I didn't have modeled for me. I grew up with all men, actually. My mom was the only female figure in my world, and everybody around me was boys. And so to learn how to be a woman in a very male-dominated world actually became a theme of my life. And I'm thankful that, I had that experience growing up. But I looked like a boy until I was probably 12, maybe 13. And that, you think that's crazy, but no, it's true. Like, my brothers and I would leave a restaurant and they would say, "You boys have a good day." And so, I mean, that kind of thing sticks with you for a little bit. But so I think for me, it was more just growing into my identity as a woman. And for me, it was very much tied to my faith as well, and just rooted in learning who I was made to be in Christ. And when those two things came together, then I think the external matched the internal.
Yeah, that's a really good answer. So for me, when I think about it, how I was in the public versus at home or private, part of my personality is a very hard driving, almost a tough-mindedness. And so because I wanted to achieve, and that was part of how I was raised, is to work very hard and to achieve and keep moving and keep going. I think that at times my public and my at home or private might have been a little different. My family, my children would tell you that I'm very soft-hearted. I was a very soft-hearted mom, and with them, probably a little bit more lenient than I should have been. But I also felt like my entire, whether it was my authentic self at home or in my public, out there, doing it every day, trying to be the best that I could be, really was about being authentic, and my faith was the thing that always grounded me, always, no matter. I had this little saying to myself when I would walk into the office in the morning that I was climbing the stairway to heaven. I was literally there for a purpose, a time, and that I was wanting to bring my best authentic self into whatever I did. And so even last night I was at a board meeting and I found myself, really again driving and achieving, but in the core and heart of it was, what can I bring to this table that is uniquely me, that I can partner with somebody else so that we really create something that is very, very good.
I tried to start putting myself into a box to fit into the small group at that startup that I worked with. And I had the privilege a few years ago to work with a gentleman who wrote a book called The Hype Handbook. And he was doing consulting on, you don't want to do marketing, you want to do hype. I'd listened to him present on a podcast, had reached out for one meeting, and then was surprised when my boss said, all right, well, let's work with him. And so we'd had several meetings that were just very, very forced. And I kept saying, I want you to teach me. Like, I don't want you to do this for me. I want you to help me develop these skills so that I can keep doing this after we stop working with you. And I had written this very, very bland, dry, researchy article about why it is so important that we take care of people in the workplace. And I had all these stats, and it was so much fun to put together. And we had a private meeting to meet to say, okay, this is really, really academic. Like, you've got to make it more interesting. And it was the first meeting that we had had individually. And I came in wearing a $5 t-shirt from Target with all my tattoos exposed. And he was totally surprised. He was like, who are you? Like, he thought that I was this very, proper, put together corporate person, which is hilarious if you talk to me at all, or, maybe in this introduction to me. And he just started to see that I was this very different person. And so I credit him because we started building an outward persona for me. And really what that was allowing me to be who I was and really present publicly with the thoughts and ideas and the self-deprecating and calling out the BS kind of stuff that I wanted to do. And so it built me toward this bold place where I couldn't go back anymore. And that's been really the moment, I think, where things kind of changed for me.
This is a great segue, so thank you. Melanie talked a lot about surrounding yourself with people who dig out the gold in you and who are your village. Can you give us some practical, what does it feel like when your village is there for you? What is a practical thing that you think about that makes you, you think you were seen, you were supported, you were, given love?
And I think about this and perspective to different seasons in my life, times when I had professional mentorship and group of like-minded who really we drew off of each other, we supported each other, and I think even propelled each other to excel or to celebrate each other's successes. More recently, for me, it's people that show up, and they've really taught me that I need to show up for other people. I need to be there in those good times, those hard times, and to be something and do something. So, tomorrow will be an example. I have a group of young women. They're all in their 30s, and somehow we've become very good friends. They have several children, young children, that they try to, it's just to balance all the things that you have to balance in life. And we meet once a week, and we decided that we were going to be there for each other because every one of us are constantly pouring out, and we love doing that, but there's the time when you can just be with somebody who can be your confidant, pray for you, believe for you, somebody that you can weep with and say, I'm really having a hard day today. I'm missing my husband like crazy. And I don't show my grief out in the public or even to, church, wherever it is. That's just how I am. I feel like I'm a very strong person. And somebody who has gone through cancer, somebody who is trying to figure out how to raise 6 kids in today's world and doing all the things that requires. We get to be there for each other and just be real, spend 2 hours together. And that's the kind of, I think, group and mentorship and friendship that has just sustained me in my life, but I've also felt so grateful that at different seasons I could have different people that spoke into my life and that I could also do the same for them.
I had a mean girl who decided it was my time to go.
Oh.
And through her process, I developed complex PTSD. I was super, super paranoid. I couldn't sleep. I gained probably 30 pounds in like 3 months because of stress and what cortisol does to your body. And I had a lot of people who rallied around me and knew that something was wrong, but 2 women specifically, the one who I've mentioned a couple of times, she was one of my go-tos that I would call and say this thing happened, and she would talk me off the ledge. And I had another woman who said, well, what would it take for you to leave? And I said, I need someone to help me with this event because I can't leave until this event happened. And so I thought I had another 3-6 months that I was gonna need to be there. And she said, well, what do you need for that to happen? And I said, I need a bank account. I need someone to help me funnel thousands and thousands of dollars because I can't do that right now. And she said, I can do that. She didn't have a business bank account yet. She did 3 months later. But I had 2 incredibly bold, amazing women who said, I know that you need help getting out of this spot where you're at, and I'm gonna help you do it.
I'm fortunate that my partners in my business are family. My husband is in the company with me, and he's right next to me every day in the good and the bad and the ugly some days. And then my co-founder is a cousin of mine through marriage. And just learning that we have a family covenant of we're never going to not know each other. No matter what happens on a day-to-day grind basis, we have a built-in support system, and you have to work through the things together. And that creates just a really sweet, it makes the hard days a little less hard, and it makes the joyous occasions so much better when you have those people next to you to build with. Most recently, though, since I moved back to Fargo about 2 years ago, and in a growing phase, you find that you don't actually have a lot of margin in your life. And I don't think I worked out for 5 years, from the time my first child was born until shortly after my second child was born. I just didn't make space for it, and I was very when I would go into my my midwife appointments, they would tell me I'd feel a lot better if I walked. I'm like, I get it, I don't have time. And so since moving to Fargo, I was intentional about, okay, I have to have margin for things outside of work. And I found a community of 2 or 3 women that I go to yoga with a couple times a week. They don't have anything to do with the industry I'm in, and they are some of my biggest champions. And I am building that friendship while I'm doing something that's good for me. And otherwise, I don't think I would have as much time on a regular cadence to make that happen. And so that has been a bit of just an unexpected blessing for me to be, focusing on my health while building that connection and that support group has been just a really sweet part of my current season.
I really appreciate those answers, and I always think it's fascinating to hear that it's the daily activities that sometimes we trivialize when we do them for others that come up in conversations like this. When I wrote my doctoral dissertation, it was about how to create relationships that are meaningful between Black and white women in the Midwest. And it constantly came to the surface that it's about showing up when someone needs you to be there. If it's a yoga partner, if it's coming through with dinner on a busy night, if it's picking your kid up from school when you have another activity that you have to be at and you can't be at all the places. And so I just want to take a moment to really let that just sink in, that all of the things that you do to support your village can literally be the thing that allows them to move through their season, and to not trivialize those things, but to appreciate them and recognize their value, and cultivating this incredible circle of support and courage, really, to be able to move through the things that have the potential to really impact our lives in meaningful ways. we all view the seasons differently. Can you talk about which season you feel is the hardest?
Rest is non-existent. Melanie's trying to help me to see where that can lie, but I have a really, really hard time with that.
I think they're all hard in different ways. Oddly, though, the one I'm going to call out that is surprising is harvest. My husband and I actually farm as well. And when if any of you grew up in a farming community, when you're harvesting, nobody sleeps. You are going until the crop is off. And you are running, things break down, there's chaos, and you realize that the time window to capture what you've worked for an entire year, and in the case of a farmer, it's their whole income for a year is on the line in the matter of 2 to 3 weeks. And very much that's harvest for all of us. And it is messy and it is hard. And people can look at the harvest and think it looks really glorious and exciting. And when you're in it, capturing it and cultivating it to become, prosperous for you as it was intended is actually a lot of work. So, harvest.
I had put the same, that harvest was one of my tough seasons from a little bit different perspective. And it's true, when you are in a harvest season, you're already looking to the grain in the bins, right? And getting it into the elevator and cashing in. And what that might mean for you as a family. But one of the things for me is I'm a builder. My top strength is strategy. So I get a little bored as you're getting near the end of the harvest, and I don't really want to pay attention to the details. I just want to get to that next thing that I'm going to build or be a part of. So that's what I always find for myself is I would really enjoy that, even though it's a push, it's a lot of hard work, and you have put something or created something. Even when you think about a harvest of whether it's the season you're raising your children or starting a business and it launches, in that you've created something really beautiful that I need to take a moment. So that's why I go between harvest and rest, is that even in those moments, taking that time to just say, wow, let me look around and see what happened in this season. I feel like we always get strength for that. That final push of finishing something or finishing a project or doing a marathon, there's always a place of strength when we can take that moment. So that's why harvest is sticky for me, I think, in some ways. That tricky time is because I'm already thinking ahead. I'm getting a little bored now being out on this tractor late at night, although I never drove a tractor. And when I was dating my husband, he put me on the tractor once, and that was it. And so that it is so fun to think about and looking back in that harvest, but also the importance of taking a piece of rest in harvest.
So one of the questions that I absolutely loved that we had each of you respond to was, what does success look like to you? And I'm just going to share their answers and ask them to elaborate on those because I think that they were so incredible. Calli says that she wants to put more good into the world than she takes. Ashley says she wants to be able to lean in her unhinged ability to structure her life around what she feels called to do. And Cyndy says that success is to know that she loved well. And so I want each of you just to lean into those responses and just share a little bit more about, how do you live that? What does that look like practically? Because I think those are answers that are raw and honest, and I really appreciate you sharing them with us.
So for me, my answer was the unhinged ability to structure my day. And I read a quote by Sarah Blakely, I'm going to butcher it, but something to the effect of every entrepreneur went out into the world to try and find what they were looking for, and they couldn't, so they started building it. And really what that meant for me was it was hard to find a successful working mom and wife in my industry. Most women I met were divorced and they had broken families. And so, and I could see why. The industry is very demanding with how you spend your time. You're traveling a lot. And for me, what success looks like is if I can tell my 6-year-old really needs some time with me, that I can just dedicate my day to that. And I don't necessarily have to, I know what I'm saying yes to, I know what I'm saying no to. And in another day, I know that my choice is to travel and to lean into our business life because that's what fuels my passion. But having the ability to make those choices for myself is really what success looks like for me.
And I think just the word passion, I think love and passion go so well together, because when you're passionate about the things that you love and you love passionately, I think that is success. And this morning I was reading in, of course, Ecclesiastics, which has to do with seasons, right? And there were just two beautiful scriptures that came to mind, and I think it describes for me what it means to be in that season of love and loving people well, whether it's a kindness, whether it's, as we talked about, delivering a meal, whether it's just a hug and being there with somebody and just kind of weeping with them. So the two things is he has made everything beautiful in its time. So right now in this moment, he has made everything beautiful in you and for you. And that's that essence of love. And then I know that there's nothing better in life than to rejoice and do good. And so that's another, almost a parable of love, that we get to rejoice in the moments, it doesn't matter what those moments are, and that we also can do good in that place of loving ourselves, loving other people, and really being kind to our world.
Nothing helps you unearth your childhood trauma like having your own kid. And so I'm really learning that I felt really invisible for a really long time, despite doing these big things to try to outwardly show that I didn't think that I was. And so it's really interesting to me that at this time of change and planting, that really what I've started to learn about myself is that being that person who outwardly can advocate for someone who can't do that for themselves is really important to me. And so it's a little ironic that I am now leading a nonprofit that focuses on student homelessness, while building a business that brings childcare into the workplace, and supporting women and making sure that women have opportunities for advancement, but just as importantly, helping people to recognize that 0 to 3 specifically and 0 to 5 are literally the most critical time of development, and how do we make sure that we give that next generation really the best possible start that they can have. And to me, being able to bring that to life and be able to create an environment where children have the best opportunities to succeed, and women have the best opportunity to succeed, and those who have experienced incredible, great challenges that no one should have to face have that opportunity to launch into adulthood successfully, that's really showing me that that's having those opportunities to see people really become who they should be is what makes me most feel success.
Thank you all. We have time for one more question. And so to round us out, sometimes we don't get to choose our season, or we're not in the season that maybe we want to be. What advice would you share for courage to lean in to vulnerability, authenticity, in the community that's here with us today, to be able to move through those seasons in a way that centers well-being?
So everyone wants us to sit down, shut up, and pretend like everything is fine. And when I started not doing that, and I would have vulnerable conversations with new people that I'd met on LinkedIn the first time I had them, the resounding thing that they would say is, I've experienced that too. I went and spoke about psychological safety and what it felt like for me not to have it and how you can really mess people up by not supporting that within other people. And all of these women came forward in this massive room saying, I felt that too. And we're so incredibly vulnerable. So I think the willingness to say, I'm not okay in small groups has been really helpful to see that these things that I've experienced and these transitions that I'm going through, yes, they're unique to me and how they're manifesting, but that this is sort of a tale as old as time. And the more that we're willing to have those conversations, the more we can make sure that we're showing up for one another and putting the light that we want to in the world.
Thank you.
So in a season of growth, you get to a point where you realize this is really hard and there's a lot of ups and downs, and you actually can't turn back. Like you're there, and if you don't push through, you absolutely just don't even have the option of going back. And in that moment, it's very isolating. Leadership can feel very lonely. I don't know if anybody in leadership has felt that before. I'm sure most have. But in what I have found to help me through and to cope, I would say, and successfully transition to the next phase or into the just being able to push forward in the growth season, is to find people smarter than you, people who've been there before, and lean into them. You really do become who you hang out with. And so I'm frequently looking for people who know more than I do and attaching myself to them to ride their coattails, because that's how you move from one stage of growth to the next. And then having your good support system. For me, it's my husband and my business partner. But yeah, those seasons can be really challenging. So find people who can come around you.
I resonated with that. In a season of planting and growth, I always found it necessary to be around people much smarter than I was. And I learned from that so much. Plus, it was just a kind of a vibrant way of living, because you were always challenged in the best kind of way to be open and learn. But being in a season that you hadn't planned or you didn't want to be in, that's really been the last year of my life where that was not where I wanted to be. And I had not, you never prepare for it. There was no preparing. And for me, it became a place of honesty and vulnerability and just being raw sometimes with what that felt like. I would tell my friends, I feel like I'm in a dream. I don't think my life is real. And that, just saying that, and then I would laugh about it in a way because I couldn't really describe it. But it's, for me, in those hard seasons or those seasons you find yourself, sometimes it's a surprise season that it's super good and super fun, and sometimes it's a hard season. It is the people that walk alongside of you, literally. I have a good friend, and we walk at different places, Fargo Parks or whatever. And we find ourselves talking about our daughters are so similar and the challenges they have. We start laughing. And she turned to me the one day and she said, I have a love problem. I go, you have a love problem? And so we have these little sayings that we say to each other that just brings us just a lightness and a humor. And it's also the people that know more than anything what it's like to lose something or someone, or have a place of just grief that could grip you, but God and but the friends and people in your life, where you find an inner strength and even such goodness in that, because of all of the people and the ways that God brings blessings into your life. And it changed me so much, because I knew I really need to do the same for other people. And even in that space of volunteering in a hard season, about a month or so ago, I went to Mexico with a group on a mission trip, and we built a house. And talk about gratitude and feeling like I had been so selfish in my life because I had so much. And they needed to give and be in that place where it was hard work, it was emotional, and yet it was necessary for me to not dwell, really, I didn't need to dwell on myself, because I had everything that I needed to be able to give to people who did not have. and the beauty of them I learned more about family from that culture than I think I had learned in my entire life. And I brought that home. So those are the things for me in those hard seasons that have just been so good.
I just, again, want to say thank you to all of you. On a final note, I just want to share, these women offered so many great insights into their own journeys. If you're sitting here today feeling like you don't have that village, you don't have those people that are going to drop by and do those things for you, I can resonate with that. Living in another country without a village of people to support you, I fully felt that. And I just want you to know that I challenge you to lean in to connecting with someone here today that's new to you. Actually do the thing of finding your bracelet mate and following up for coffee. I think oftentimes we lose out on the opportunities because it's a little bit uncomfortable, it's a little bit awkward, it's a little bit, strange to be setting up coffees with somebody that you don't know what you're going to talk about, but it can really be the opportunity to be one person for you that you have in your corner. And so I leave you today with a quote that I just recently heard at a conference I was at. And it was, we need to become fluent in the language of celebration. And the little things are the things that we know matter and that we can celebrate today. So I hope that you enjoyed our session, and we are all available to connect with you and learn more about the things that you all are working on too, so that we can continue to support each other. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us in our mission to remind women of who they are, how to professionalize their strengths, and step into their purpose. To learn more about She Overcomes and our Becoming Bold cohorts, you can go to sheovercomes.co. To learn more about our virtual community, the Ezer Collective, go to ezer.disco.co. And finally, to learn more about my book, Irreverent, a memoir of reckless hope, unexpected love, and finding my voice, you can find that at melaniemichelle.co/books. Until next time, Overcomer, it's time for you to find your purpose, chase it with courage, and step into your unique gifts. Thank you.